The P.
Really bothering Mikey Garcia because he's putting up that left hand, trying to block it, but he can't block it. When he's trying to block it, you know, Earl Spencer's coming in with that left.
Welcome to the motherfucking relay. We're covering today's top boxing news.
Okay, we'll start with this. Teofimo Lopez plans a 140-pound move. Loma fight must be in 2019. The article reads, the 2016 Honduran Olympian hopes to fight for a world title in July. He said if that happens, he would likely defend the title once before moving up to the super lightweight division. Let's say if I fight for the world title in July, then I will defend it in December and move up. Lopez said while revealing that it's getting tougher to make the 135-pound weight limit. It is getting there. It is not hard, but I know just a little slight mistake on my weight and it will be hard. Meaning if I get carried away a little bit when I'm not training or fighting, that is, I have to be strict about. Right now, we are maintaining weight and keeping focused. That is really it. I really have to maintain. My body is growing and getting ready to go to 140, and I have to keep it down a couple more months. I've been telling everybody. I told Bob and I told everybody that if they want to push the fight with Vasil Lomachenko to next year, I'm going to say it like this. I gave them this whole year. If they want to push it to March, I'm not taking the fight. I'm not going to wait that long. We could fight, but it would be at a catch weight. I am not going to wait at 135 pounds. Lopez hasn't been shy in calling out Lomachenko, who is a top 2 pound-for-pound fighter by most boxing pundits. He made it clear that if titles are going to be on the line, then the fight needs to happen this year. And I'll tell you something. This is why I referenced Teofimo in my previous video and how I don't feel that his call-outs are hollow. I genuinely feel like he wants that fight. And if he were to fight Richard Comey sometime in July for Richard Comey's IBF title,
That's what he needs to do.
that would be the step in the right direction that he needs to land a Vasil Lomachenko fight. Because right now, in spite of how many times you talk about this guy to the media, you're indistinguishable from anyone else.
You're just another guy.
You're just another name in the hat. You're just another guy with Vasil Lomachenko's name in your mouth. He's got no real reason to give you the time of day because we know what his aim is. He wants to become an undisputed champion, and he's been targeting nothing but champions since he turned pro. So
It's always been his plan.
pursuing world titles is consistent with what he's been doing. So if you want to get a fight with that guy,
Get a belt.
get a world title of your own, and that'll paint the target on your back. The target on your back that could land you that fight. It's the right idea, it's the right move, and that fight in and of itself, Teofimo Lopez versus Richard Comey, that fight in and of itself could be a very entertaining fight and afford Teofimo Lopez the opportunity to rack up another exhilarating knockout. Because for all Richard Comey's virtues, and he's got some, you know, this guy's a strong puncher, snappy shots, good speed, good athleticism.
Good power.
A fight with him and Teofimo could be a very entertaining fight, but what makes it a winnable fight for Teofimo is
Comey's leaky.
Richard Comey is one of these guys that commits to his shots, that it's not uncommon to see punches get through on him while he's attempting to deliver punches of his own. And Teofimo having the kind of power, the kind of one-hitter-quitter power that he's got, it's conceivable that in an exchange, he could hit Richard Comey with something nasty. Something nasty enough that he floors Comey and becomes the IBF champion in the process. So what I'm hoping for is that that fight actually comes off. And that's what all the reports are indicating right now, that what we could be looking at in July is a Teofimo Lopez versus Richard Comey fight, it being that Richard Comey has been medically cleared to fight. He had a hand injury, we know what happened, we discussed it already, but he's been medically cleared to fight. So now what I'm hoping for is that, one, that fight between Teofimo Lopez and Richard Comey gets made, and two, that the winner of that fight goes on to unify with Vasil Lomachenko sometime before the year is out. Because Teofimo's working on a deadline. He says he's outgrowing the division, he says it's getting harder to stay there, and it's common, you know, it happens.
All the time.
The kid's working on a clock. He's a young guy, and his body is growing. So I don't even, you know, I don't think there's anything to dissect there. The bottom line is that this kid's working on a clock. But the window of opportunity is still there. Those things in mind, the question really is Teofimo Lopez, is he really ready for that kind of a challenge? Is he ready to be targeting someone the likes of a Vasyl Lomachenko? I mean, how would you even go about preparing for that guy? What kind of sparring partners can you conjure up that could replicate all the nuances, the footwork, the pivots,
The angles.
multi-purposing their jab, the variety of punches, the hand speed, the volume, and the work rate? What kind of sparring partners could you conjure up that could replicate that so you can thereby prepare yourself for a guy like Vasyl Lomachenko? A guy who, you know what?
Once in a lifetime fighter.
He's really one of the more unique fighters I've ever seen in post-modern boxing. You know, you get good solid fighters every era of boxing. Good solid fighters, they've got their virtues, they've got their drawbacks. But this fighter, you know, this is among one of those rare fighters that, you know, they've got their own unique set of characteristics and subtleties.
Nuances.
This not your run-of-the-mill guy that you're targeting. This isn't your run-of-the-mill big fish. This guy, he does look a lot like a once-in-a-lifetime kind of athlete, a once-in-a-lifetime kind of fighter. Those things in mind, the question really does become, okay, let's say you beat Richard Comey. That doesn't necessarily mean you're ready for a Vasyl Lomachenko. You may be on the right track to getting the fight, but if you do get the fight, the issue then becomes winning the fight. It's one of those situations where that age-old proverb immediately comes to mind that be careful what you wish for because you just might get it. And for Teofimo, who shows a lot of promise, I mean, he shows all the promise of what could be a world beater, what could be a multi-division champion, and maybe even, you know, if he really pushes himself, what could one day be a pound-for-pound fighter. He shows that promise. But what you're proposing is taking on one of the most formidable fighters in the entire sport of boxing at a point in your career where you're still kind of green, where you still have a lot of growing to do, that there are opponents out there, the likes of which you've never faced, much less this guy. So I see the situation, I see the ambition and the enthusiasm of a young up-and-comer like Teofimo Lopez, and it's admirable, because that's the most you can ask of any fighter looking to make a name for himself. It's admirable. But those things aside, for all the virtues associated with that, there still is a chance that maybe Teofimo is getting ahead of himself, that maybe he's trying to take on too much too soon and he doesn't see it yet. He can't see past his own ambitions. His reach exceeds his grasp. There's always a chance that this could backfire, but you know what? That's the selling point. That is the intrigue of a fight like that. That's what makes people pay attention. The risks that Teofimo's taking on, and the risks that Vasyl Lomachenko would be taking on. Vasyl Lomachenko would be taking on a hungry young lion, eager to make a name for himself. And Teofimo would be taking on a guy who's not just better than anyone that you've ever fought, but you'd be taking on a guy who's widely regarded as one of the best pound-for-pound fighters in the entire sport of boxing. And you'd be attempting to take on a guy like that at a point in your career where you're still green. Exciting times in the sport of boxing. In other news, regarding former unified cruiserweight champion Murat Gassiev, it appears that he could be making his heavyweight debut in June. We know that Alexander Usyk, he's already well on his way. He's going to be facing Takam in his debut, and it appears that Murat Gassiev is following suit. But I'm of the opinion, and you can feel free to disagree on this, but I'm of the opinion that given Murat Gassiev's age,
25.
and the fact that Usyk is moving up to the heavyweight division, he's going to be relinquishing all those world titles that he held.
Very soon.
I'm of the opinion that with those things in mind, Murat Gassiev should really stay in the cruiserweight division. I want you guys to sit down and think about this for a second. Murat Gassiev ain't but 25 years old. Don't let his appearance and his size fool you. The guy's a young guy. He's only 25 years old. He suffered his first professional loss. It was a dominating loss. He got outboxed by Alexander Usyk. But there's no shame in that. Alexander Usyk's been boxing circles around the entire weight class, so there's really no shame in that. And it's something that, given Murat's age and the state of the division itself, it's something that he could easily bounce back from. Because now that Usyk's leaving the weight class and he's going to relinquish all those world titles, the division itself becomes open yet again. All those world titles, they're going to be available for a guy like Gassiev to fight for, a young guy whose whole career is ahead of him. I'm of the opinion that going up there to heavyweight right now is unnecessary. You're going up there to do what? Wait in line for a Joshua fight or wait in line for a Deontay Wilder fight? What are you going up there to do?
Seriously.
You know, in the case of Usyk, it's a little different. You beat everybody there was to beat in the weight class, so why stay at cruiserweight, you understand? In his case, it's different. But in Gassiev's case, okay, you're on the rebound. You've got to bounce back from your first professional loss, but you're a very young guy. You've got all the time in the world to really develop and hone your skills and perfect your craft. So why go up there to heavyweight where you're going to be a newbie to the division when you can continue to build upon what you already have in familiar territory before you decide to go up there and contend with heavyweights?
Too soon for that.
The division right now, the cruiserweight division, is ripe for the taking. You understand? You got Tabiti there. You got Mayris Bradis there. Lebedev's still hanging around, though I don't think he's going to be around for much longer.
Gassiev beat him.
You got Lawrence Okolie. You got all these different opportunities that a guy like Gassiev can capitalize on because he just performed on a very big stage, and for the most part, he did very well, with the exception of the Usyk fight. I mean, a lot of guys don't perform very well against Usyk, that's why there's no shame in that. But those things in mind, he performed very well up until the final. So I'm of the opinion, you can feel free to disagree, that Gassiev doesn't need to go to heavyweight right now. It just doesn't make sense to go there right now. There are actually more opportunities for a guy like Gassiev right now in the cruiserweight division than there are in the heavyweight division. Because you go up there, you have a couple of tune-up fights. You know, you fight some guys to get your feet wet in the weight class. You're still going to end up in line waiting for a Joshua fight, waiting for a Wilder fight. And those are the only two champions in that weight class, so you ain't got a choice but to wait. And those guys, they got their own issues between each other.
Don't they?
So, you know, I saw this news that Gassiev could be going up there very soon, and I immediately thought to myself, why? The division could be yours for the taking. Who knows if Murat Gassiev's people will think it through and double back on that? Who knows what they'll decide to do once the smoke settles? But I'm of the opinion, you know, and if you want to know my opinion, and you're here, so, you know, I'll assume that you do. If you want to know what my take on it is, I don't think Gassiev needs to move up right now. Just one man's opinion.
We can joke around all we want to about all these heavyweight fights. When you and Joshua gonna get it on, man?
That is the big question. Joshua and his teams, they already spoken to the universe that they wanted in 2020, and I'm a believer of what you're speaking, you believe and receive it, and I think this is what is going to work.
Liar.
But the major thing about this award is it's a three-headed king in this division.
I didn't want to talk about the bronze bummer in another video. I don't want to waste any more time on this guy, because that's what he is. He's a waste of fucking time. You see how much time he's wasted from April 2018 of last year till now, right? He's done little more than reject offers to fight. Yet when faced with a question in front of the eyes of the American public, when Charles Barkley asked this guy, yo, when are you gonna fight Joshua? What does he say?
Well, they poked it into a business that they wanted in 2020.
Hey, didn't you just turn down $100 million fucking dollars?
Wasn't that you?
$100 fucking million, 20 for Brazil, 80 for Anthony Joshua. And to do what? So that you could try to call Vlad when you heard that he might have been coming out of retirement? I mean, what's this guy trying to do? Is he trying to, like, impersonate Anthony Joshua or something? You're fighting Dominic Brazil, who Anthony Joshua beat already, but it's negligible because he's your mandatory. Fine, let's give him a pass on that. But you tried to contact Vladimir when you heard he was coming back?
My hearing is right.
So what are you telling me? That you're not interested in fighting Anthony Joshua, but you are interested in fighting people that he's beat already? So like, what the fuck are you, a parody of him? Like, what the fuck's going on here? You know, Wilder's fans can sit there and get mad at me all fucking day, but I'm not lying about anything. Deontay fucking Wilder, the bronze fucking bummer, sat there and admitted
he did it
himself. He admitted it himself, that when they heard that there were rumors, they heard rumors that Vladimir Klitschko might be coming out of retirement, so they decided to reach out to that guy for a fight, only to find out that it was an April Fool's joke. And who's the fucking fool? Who's the fucking April Fool? Deontay Wilder's the April Fool, and you'd have to be a fool yourself to believe this thick line of bullshit coming from this fraud. The usual suspects tried their best to steal Anthony Joshua's thunder when he beat Vladimir Klitschko in a fight that even today is still the biggest heavyweight fight in recent memory. It was the most watched around the world and the highest grossing.
Check the numbers.
You don't have to believe me. All you gotta do is check the numbers. That is the biggest heavyweight fight in recent memory. pulled in the most viewership all around the world and generated more money, far more than any other heavyweight fight we've seen, any other heavyweight title fight.
Recent memory.
Yet the usual suspects did their best to try to steal Anthony Joshua's thunder, diminish his victory over Vladimir, saying that Vladimir was old and washed up. So what do you got to say about Deontay Wilder trying to contact that same old, washed up Vladimir 2 fucking years later? I mean, you guys got time to sit there and point a camera at your wrinkled old fucking faces and talk about Deontay Wilder every day, so how come you guys don't got time to address that? That your boy was trying to fight the same guy that Joshua fought, and when Joshua fought him, you guys said that he was too old. So what the fuck is he 2 years later? When are you guys gonna address that shit? You know, I can't help but constantly highlight the varying mediocrities of Deontay Wilder and those who support him, because I cannot sit idly by and allow these guys to perpetrate this fraud on the boxing community. I can't sit by and do it, even though I don't want to waste any more time on the bronze bummer, Deontay Wilder. I don't want to waste time on him anymore, but at the end of the day, I have to, because somebody has got to tell the truth. And the truth is that this is the most mediocre, souped up hype job in modern boxing. Oh yeah, he's the most outspoken. He never shuts the fuck up. But while he's the most outspoken, he's also the most protected. I mean, think about how protected this guy has got to be, that they allowed him to walk away from $100 million so that you could do what? Try to get a Vladimir Klitschko fight? The same Vladimir Klitschko that your fans don't even give Anthony Joshua credit for beating? So what, they were going to give you credit for beating him 2 years later if you had to fight? I mean, how fucking ridiculous is this shit? And I maintain that what Deontay Wilder is trying to do at this late stage in his career is get the American public behind him. He has effectively used the name of Anthony Joshua to will his mediocre career into relevance. Because before Anthony Joshua rolled around, nobody was really even paying attention to this guy. But he's used the name of Anthony Joshua to will himself into existence. And now that a couple of people know who he is, and he's got a little bit more Instagram followers, and his name does get Googled from time to time, he's happy with that mediocrity, with that uber success. But ladies and gentlemen, the real point and purpose in prize fighting, when it comes to making yourself known, is paying customers, the revenue that you generate. And while a couple of deluded old men on YouTube might want you to believe that, well, Wilder's marquee value has been raised, hey, you know what? His next fight isn't a pay-per-view, guys. So if his marquee value really were raised, that fight would be a pay-per-view. Because that would mean that the networks trust him to carry it, even against a guy like Dominic Breazeale. But that's just it. They don't, do they? It's not a pay-per-view. You went from being on pay-per-view to not being on pay-per-view, which means, well, that's a step backwards, not forwards.
Mediocre.